Hi, and welcome to the Thepricklypairshow. I'm Ron Furman. Welcome. Today we have a special show. I can't really describe the show until I'm going to introduce our amazing guest. Hello.
Hey, Ron.
So nice to see you. So we're here with Mayor Weinstein, the head of the JDL. The show that we're doing right now is really about highlighting heroes, trying to find everyday heroes. And I think today having someone like yourself here would confuse some of our audience, and yet there are many people out there who do see you as a hero. I'm one of those people who believe that every Jewish person who's doing something amazing for his community is a hero, someone who is able to step up and speak on Israel's behalf. But clearly there are different tactics that not everybody is into. Today I wanted to speak to you about the JDL. I wanted to ask you about your personal story. How did you get involved? The need for the JDL, and maybe break some misconceptions that people have about the Jewish Defense League. Let's start off by first talking a little bit about the JDL itself. Okay. Can you tell me when it was established, what was the need back in the day, and how does it play a role in today's world?
Yeah, well, the Jewish Defense League got established in the United States first, in New York City in 1968. It was established by Rabbi Meir Kahana. And he was a community rabbi, the rabbi of the synagogue, and he was writing for the Jewish press as well. And he saw a lot of incidents that would be reported of anti-Semitism, and he would report these incidents, serious incidents, to established Jewish organizations and try to see what they're going to do and hopefully they're going to do something about it. And seemed to fall on a lot of deaf ears. So he got together with a few people, and they formed the Jewish Defense League, and it was like a lightning bolt split off in the Jewish community. A lot of support, a lot of people rallying around the slogan that the Jewish Defense League coined, "Never Again." And
this is something that we say regularly when we talk about the Holocaust.
That's right. That's the basis of it.
So it's funny because everybody uses those words today when we're speaking about the Holocaust and we're talking about the future generations, but yet when it comes to Never Again related to Kahana, there is sort of this pushback.
Yeah, there's a lot of pushback because Rabbi Kahana, in the early 70s, he made Aliyah and he moved to Israel. And he wanted to get involved and wanted to get a seat in the Knesset so he could affect some change in Israel. And he saw that that the Arabs, for the most part, in Israel, will not recognize Israel as a Jewish state. And at that time, there were demographic projections going on, that the Jewish birth rate was extremely low. Extremely low. Well, it's not like that today, but back then it was. And the Arab birth rate was extremely high. Golda Meir, former prime minister, would even say she feared waking up in the morning to see what the numbers would be in Israel. So Rabbi Kahana advocated that so we're not going to. He doesn't want to lose the Jewish state either through bullets, terror, or through babies, demographics. And he posed the question. It makes a lot of people very uncomfortable when he posed that question. But fast forward to today, the demographics have certainly changed. Certainly since many Soviet Jews ended up in Israel, and the birth rate of not just the religious but the non-religious in Israel as well has been very high up there. And the Arab birth rate, I guess, as a result of a lot of educational programs and such, and women going more into the workforce than they were back then, that has receded considerably. So now you don't have that demographic nightmare hanging over your neck as much. But when he posed that question, it made so many uncomfortable.
Well, now clearly it's uncomfortable, especially, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on this. Whenever I hear about Egypt and why we were slaves, it was because our numbers were going to grow. So the Egyptians had the fear, so they enslaved us. And here we have Meir Kahana who believes, well, if the numbers grow, why don't we expel the Arabs from the state of Israel?
Yeah, but the only difference is with that is that when Israel came into being in 1948, you had the Arab countries and the Arabs inside waged war against the new Jewish state. And Jews in Egypt were anything but. They were loyal citizens, ready to do anything to prove their loyalty to Egypt. The same thing as the Jews in Germany. They didn't pose any threat to Germany, to Hitler, to anyone, and they were proud German citizens. They even said we're Germans of the Mosaic persuasion.
Well, they said Berlin was the Jerusalem of Europe.
Yeah,
so
they said all that, and not just Reform Jews were saying that. You had Orthodox Jews, that many rabbis were advocates. We live here. It's wonderful, and
The JDL right now plays a role in the community where we see a protest happening or a few extremists that are coming out, and the JDL wants to show presence. There are many Jewish organizations out there, pro-Israel organizations, that are doing amazing things like Hagshama, ZOA, Stand With Us, Hasbara Fellowships. There's so many organizations out there that are literally going out there and speaking on Israel's behalf. Do you feel that the JDL's presence is helping the Jewish community, I mean as a whole, or is it something that is just a necessity?
Well, it's both. It's both. Let me give you a little example.
Okay.
I went out to Alberta a couple of years ago to speak there and try to open up a branch of JDL there. The reason I went out to Alberta, it wasn't the first time I was in Alberta. I was out there in the 80s when the goal was to shut down a training camp by the Aryan Nations. And they had loaded guns there, and they made their claims so clear. And in fact, I had a loaded gun pointed at me when I confronted them. And we shut them down. The head of their group was called Terry Long, Aryan Warrior. And Warren Kinsella was, he's a liberal strategist today, but back then he was writing articles for the Calgary Herald. And he wrote many articles back then. He wrote a book even about this particular incident, Web of Hate. We've got pictures there and everything, and the whole story about what went on. And we didn't back down. There was a lot of threats back then. Fast forward to today, when I brought the JDL back about 10 years ago, there was All Quds Day taking place in Calgary. And some members of the Jewish community and some people who are not Jewish that support Israel went out there, and they were holding Israeli flags, and they got attacked by people who were at the All Quds Day rally, and hate us. So, physically attacked, beaten up. It was like terrifying for these people. They never expected that, and the reaction of the police was not good.
Yeah.
Not good. This made it onto the news and everything, and eventually there were some charges and slaps on the wrist. Nothing really happened to the people that committed the violence against Jews or people who support Israel. So, some of the people there, they reached out to me, and I went out to Calgary and I spoke, and it was a packed hall, and there was a lot of supports in Calgary for the JDL. We got it off the ground, and since then, All Quds Day in Calgary has been confronted properly.
What is properly? I'm actually interested to know.
Well, what is properly is that you get the numbers, and you get some tough people with you as well. So you're not going to be intimidated, and you let the authorities know, you let the police know, you let everyone know that no one's going to take away your rights, and you stand there with the Israeli flag. It's not intimidating. Toe-to-toe. It's a game of intimidation.
So we're on that, and I feel like it is about intimidation. Sometimes I walk and I see these protests and I see the JDL. There's the black shirt, the fist, right, with the yellow star, has like a little remnants of the Holocaust, kind of fighting back. You're seeing bikers, you're seeing big guys, and there are many Jewish people who are, I don't want to say more left, but have a different strategy of battling, which is through the newspapers, through media, through Facebook today. How do you feel you're making the change by coming there to become the intimidating force? How do you feel like...
Well, number one, it's the JDL that made the issue of All Quds Day an issue, number one. And now all the different Jewish organizations organizations are speaking about Al Quds Day and the danger that it represents. So that's one thing. We highlighted the problem. We also do the advocacy as well, and I testified at City Hall, in the chambers there, about what the threat is. And been in touch with the mayor on a number of occasions, and he listens to my testimony. It's online, and testified a couple of times there. So we do that as well. So CEJA does that now, and B'nai B'rith is doing that. Seven Wiedenfeld Center is doing a little bit of advocacy as well, but just advocacy alone, without, I guess you could call it boots on the ground, is you need that combination when it comes to these threats. If you don't, they're coming now into the Jewish community.
So we're seeing, so clearly in Europe, we're seeing a rise of anti-Semitism that we haven't seen before since the 1930s. And the JDL would play a serious role in Europe because there's a real need. A lot of people claim that the JDL has no room in Canada or in America because we haven't reached that point. We don't have like murders happening on a regular basis with the anti-Semitism. We're not getting the numbers that we're getting from Europe. So what would you say to those people who believe that JDL doesn't have room right now and will call you when we really need you? Which is what I feel that a lot of people are saying today.
We're waiting for that phone call.
Okay.
We'll wait a long time because they're never going to pick up the phone and call you. No, we're at that point right now. We're at a critical point right now. There's a serious support base for Hezbollah and other terrorist organizations here in Canada and in the United States and in Europe. You definitely see that going on. So we already had in the United States people coming in, anti-Semites coming into synagogues and shooting up synagogues and killing.
Right.
So it could happen, God forbid, but it could happen in Canada. And the threat is not just from radical Islamic groups. You also got on the right. You got head cases that on the right. I mean, you got the head of the Canadian Nationalist Party, a new political party, and he does a video just about a week ago, and he says we got to get rid of the parasitic tribe in Canada.
Right. He's talking about the Jews, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's what I would assume. There's now, thank God, there's an RTMP investigation onto this guy, but I see stuff coming from the right and from the radical left and radical Islamic groups. There's going to be 13th of July, there's going to be a meeting at a church, at a United Church. I want to find out a little bit more information why it's happening there at a United Church. I don't know why they would host it, but you got a group called the Palestinian Youth Movement. They're very active in the United States and in Europe and in other countries. And this particular event, they're honoring one of the leaders of the PFLP. Now, the PFLP is on the terror list of the government of Canada and throughout the world, in fact. And they're responsible for murdering the Fogel family in Israel and others, and slaughtering the infant and the whole family, for that matter, as well. And they delight in it. They actually delight. They hand out candies after in celebration of this. That the United Church would roll up the red carpet for this organization to promote a leader of the PFLP. And they don't just promote this organization, the Palestinian Youth Movement. They don't just promote this particular leader of the PFLP. They have promoted other people who have been convicted of terrorism from that are terrorists from the Popular Front for Liberation of Palestine. So this is very dangerous happening in our society right now, that if you turn a blind eye to that, and terrorist attacks are going to be glorified. You have these Al Quds Day assemblies where they're calling for the destruction of Israel, and some people are turning a blind eye to that. That mix, and BDS make it very clear they want Israel totally destroyed and demolished, and there's been information coming from Israel that shows a direct link with various leaders of BDS groups and terrorist organizations. They called it terrorists in suits. That was part of the report that came out from Israel. That, to ignore this and to say that there is no threat. If there is a threat, it's right now. Right now, I would say that Canada is being used by a lot of these terror groups as a means of raising funds and getting some kind of support and trying to change certain governmental policies. But as someone who is a supporter of this particular Palestinian youth movement on Twitter, said we support the pen and the gun. So we got to, so never again means that we take this very seriously.
I'm sure you have other things that you're doing. You started off more of a concerned citizen, and in some ways you build a group of people who are also concerned, and now you're making this your full-time gig. Like I see you at different events. You're doing Facebook Live. You're talking. You're in the newspaper. I saw you the other day on this top Jewish troll on this like Palestinian website. Why do you do it? I mean, you take a lot of heat. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, that Mayor Weinstein and his group of thugs," but at the same time, you're there to protect those same people that are calling you by those radical names. How does that make you feel? The fact that you're trying to help, you're trying to do your part, and they will need you, and yet at the same time, they see you as this polarizing character that they don't want to step near.
From the Jewish community?
From the Jewish community. I'd like to start there because, in my opinion, it's if a terrorist or an Islamist is really saying something like this, then I get where he's coming from.
Right.
But when a Jewish organization doesn't want to align with you, then I start to question why. So I want to know, because you are just an active person who wants to, to take care of the community, and yet you're getting so much slack. And not just you, I'm sure your kids, your family, and anybody that you're connected to.
Yeah, one other thing. I do this strictly as a volunteer.
Okay.
There's
So
no
everything that
there's
you're
no
doing.
paycheck for this.
So okay. So
And JDL will cover if we got to fly to Calgary or Vancouver or Montreal.
Right.
And do whatever we got to do. But
so it's like an organization where it raises funds to be able to at
for
least have
necessary
events.
programs.
Right.
that-
Okay.
that
Like
we're
bringing
involved
in special guests to come in
Yeah,
and talk.
that too. That
Right.
too. Yeah.
But yourself, you've taken a lot of heat.
Yep.
When I mentioned I was going to talk to you, I got even people from Israel saying, "Seriously, Ron, like this is the type of person you want to have on the show, and you want to be credible." But for me, it's like, absolutely, I want to be able to talk to people like yourself, and there's a reason for it.
Yep.
When we're talking about the Holocaust, we keep saying that there were heroes who were trying to fight back against the Germans when it was too late. What would happen if we would have fought just before the Holocaust happened? And I feel like, since we're talking about never again, you play that role. So for some reason, those people are heroes, and the people here that are fighting on the ground, because we know what's happening in mosques here in Toronto. Like, let's not talk about, in other places in Canada, but like here in Toronto, we have a mosque right on Ner Israel that was, getting money to give to Hezbollah. They were doing shows where they were showing kids how to cut the heads of babies, everything that the Palestinian media is, pitching here to the Muslim community. And so I want to know, how do you feel about all the negativity that's coming towards you? I mean, as someone who thinks that he's doing something positive, or believes. Sorry to say think.
Yeah. Well, look. I knew Rabbi Meir Kahane, and there's no one who I think in the Jewish world who has become such a polarizing figure. So he had people who loved him, and he had people who just hated him. And I remember him telling a story of Zem Jabotinsky that Jabotinsky gave a parable. Rabbi Kahane starts in his speeches with this parable. He said there's a stagecoach, and the horses are running wild, and the driver has fallen off, and the horses are racing wildly to the precipice, to the edge of the cliff, going. They don't know that it's going to be the end of the road, and there's a cliff there, and there's no driver to direct them. Inside the coach, there's people laughing, drinking, having a good time, just celebrating, and oblivious to what's going on. And eventually, the horses and the coach went over the cliff. He said, "No, it's Jabotinsky's parable of the European hero." They didn't want to listen. You had Jews who survived death camps that somehow made it back to the ghettos.
Mhm.
Went inside synagogues, slammed on the pulpit, and said, "What's going on? What's going on? That these trains that are taking Jews to relocation camps or something? No, these are death camps. These are, or they're work camps where they're working you to death and everything." And then you would have members of the congregation that would throw these Jews out that risked everything to come to warn Jews.
Mm-hmm.
My parents survived the Holocaust. I got no grandparents. And I know the story of visiting my father's town and everything that he lost. And how the community tried to organize just before the knife was right, as they saw it, the knife on their throat. They thought that maybe when the Germans are entering their village, that they could set up food on tables and such that the officers that are first coming, that they'll be nice to them, and it would just be like they're here, they're anti-communist.
Mhm.
That's about it. So forget about Russia and that kind of thing. So, but no, as more groups came in, then the brutality started on the Jewish community, and you had to make a decision what to do: either just stay there or try and flee. And that's what my dad did. He left to the woods, and that's the rest is history. But it's not a popularity contest. You know, when I believe in never again, I don't do it for popularity. When I went out, I mentioned when I went out to Alberta the first time with when there was the training camp by the Aryan Nations. So I'm used to whenever there's a protest that the police are going to be there,
Right.
just to keep an eye on both sides. So there was an RCMP detachment up the street, and I walked with some other JDL supporters to the entrance to this, what would be this training camp for the Aryan Nations, and I see no police there. A sea of reporters, and so that the head of the Nazi group is saying all kinds of anti-Semitic stuff, and he's having a great time. He's passing out literature also to all the reporters. This is what we stand for, and so on and so forth. And then, and with them was a guy called George Paradise, who I later learned was a former German officer during the Holocaust. And he's standing there with a shotgun, and he shows even a reporter that it's loaded. So finally, something happens. And remember, there's no cops there; they're up the street. So and there's some reporters that are actually diving to get out of the way. They're scared; they don't know what to think. So Warren Kinsella was there covering the whole thing for the Calgary Herald. So this is like headline news after the incident that I'm going to describe. So the head of the Nazi party, Terry Long, finally said something. And then we're almost face to face. There's like a fence separating us. And the guy from this guy George Paradise, he's aiming his shotgun at me, not too far from me. So I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is really escalating.
Right.
I don't know what am I doing there? And the cops aren't even here. You get on the street. And I know about a case that happened, I think it was in North Carolina, Greensboro, North Carolina, where there was an anti-Nazi group. They had a rally against the Klan, and there were some members of the Nazi party there that actually took out their guns and shot a few of the people. So, I mean, I was thinking about that at the time, and I was thinking, what is smoke? So, I mean, the guy says, I make some kind of remark to the guy. Something like, why don't you do stuff for us? It says, I'm not German, I'm Irish. And I'm certainly not a kike like you.
Okay.
And at that moment, and everybody has decisions in their life, In that moment, I learned something about myself. I had flashbacks.
Mm.
So I took a swing at him,
Mm-hmm.
and he backed down. He turned right, and the other guy lowered his gun, and he was shaking. He didn't expect that. I didn't even expect it. I thought about the Holocaust.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I took this life, I thought this is never again.
Right.
You're not going to take a picture of Jews backing down, being afraid. And, I took the consequences with that. And that was headline news. I remember speaking to Rabbi Kahana the next day, and he said, that was a Kiddush Hashem. It made it in Israel, the news. I mean, I phoned him something else.
Mm-hmm.
That was...
Jews fighting back.
Jews fighting back and never being afraid. And that's what never again is. You got to know. So when I do these things, what we do, what we're involved with, and there's been a lot of, we've been infiltrating organizations that we consider to be threats to the Jewish community, and sometimes it's risky, and there's a lot of stuff that we do, but you got to know, you got to have that belief, and even Torah, when it comes down to it, every mitzvah, really every single mitzvah is really Kiddush Hashem. Mm-hmm. If you think about it properly, what it is, why to do it, and if you're ever pushed on the most minute thing, it could be like Kiddush Hashem, that's your defiance for it. It's Kiddush Hashem. So,
you have family. I'm trying to be realistic here as a human being, right? We live in Canada, where we feel like the police is there to protect us, that nothing bad is really going to happen, that everything should be civil. But the reality is you're facing problems on a regular basis.
It's like either don't do anything. Well,
right.
Listen, I don't.
No, but you go to events. You're there. You're the face.
I know. But,
and you have a family, right? People that care for you.
Yep.
How do you feel? You're just dismissing it like as if it's nothing, but it's something serious. You're taking it upon yourself.
I don't live in fear.
Okay.
I never live in fear. I don't live in fear. Enough police know where I live and what the score is. And, thank God.
What's happening right now in Toronto? I'm interested to know. Clearly, your ears are on the ground more than the average person. You can hear the radicals. People message you, whether it's a private message or out in the open. But what is happening in Toronto what is happening in Toronto for the next year or so? What direction are we moving? Because I'm noticing that there is El Quds Day still happening on a regular basis, still fanatics that are out there. People are hiding behind the freedom of speech, where, in my personal opinion, even though I want to allow everybody to speak their mind, there's a certain point where it becomes a threat, or when you're, like, I don't say kill the Arabs, that's not, or Muslim, I don't talk this way.
Right.
I just say defend yourself, and at some points, there's going to be some sort of a war, and allow Israel to take care of the war against the terrorists, not the average person. But here in Canada, I feel like the Islamists can say very radical things with not even getting a slap on the wrist. And when we're seeing people in the Jewish community who speak out, then all of a sudden there are more problems that come out of it, and someone's being alienated. Like there's the gentleman that's all over the news who is speaking directly to you sometimes, that young man who put the event, he was saying that he was going to come to the Israel Day Parade that we had here.
Yes.
So people like him, where do you see the JDL or our job as the Jewish community to stop these anti-Semites from spewing hate speech? And right now it's speech, but that's how it started in the 30s or the 20s, and then slowly the little pogroms, and then next thing you know, the government. And if we're looking in the United States, we're seeing that it's already happening. You already have these extremists in government.
Yep.
You already have these people who are anti-Semitic, and unfortunately we have those same old Jews who are supporting them and showing support because they align themselves politically. So where do you see Toronto, or maybe the world will say, in the next year or two?
Well, I see things getting worse, actually, because, and there's also there could be some action, if you're talking about the next year or 2 years, taken against some groups. whether it has any kind of real significance or not. I think the major problem is that immigration. That when you have, for instance, Syrians coming into Canada, they don't like us. They don't like Jews.
Right, but
Syria has declared itself. They want Israel. I mean, we're in a state of war with Syria, and from generally speaking, from Islamic countries, they're not friendly to Jews. So when the number comes up, and I see conferences going on, Islamic conferences, and I'm not going to say paint every single Muslim like this, but there are speakers at some of these, at most of these conferences that are calling for no Israel, or BDS, or in fact, one major conference, one of the female presenters took a picture with someone from Hamas. So this is all tolerated in that community, and demographic numbers get
but
higher.
there are no proof that though. I mean, just because you mentioned the immigrants, that the Syrian community or people that leaving, those terrorist countries, they were kicked out or they ran away from these problems. Surely some of them still have these ideas, but they have other things to worry about.
No, of course.
Right now, they're probably worried about food and a job and how to get by and becoming a part of Canadian society.
That's right. But listen, if you had, for instance, you had people like Tariq Fatah or Salam Mansour that are running the Islamic or Muslim community for the most part, then I'd say, well, I got great people there that are running it. These guys are okay. These guys are not radicals or anything. But when you do have people that say radical things,
Right.
and support, Al-Quds Day, there was several mosques, there were bus pickups to come to attend Al-Quds Day.
Right. So why aren't we going into those mosques and trying to find out what's really going on there?
Well,
I mean that's really where the problem stems from.
Go in there.
Well, no, but still,
they post their stuff on
right, and we're not doing anything about it. I mean, I'm noticing that. I had a situation. This friend of mine went to shoot. He was hired to shoot the Al-Quds Day.
Yep.
And he's I think he is Macedonian.
Right.
Grew up in a Jewish neighborhood. All his friends are Jewish, or most of his friends are Jewish. And I caught him. Another cameraman shot him at the event. And I messaged him and I said, "Why were you there?" And he's like, "Oh, I got hired to do this." And I said, "What you saw. Yeah. Didn't it tell you that you're." It's almost like I went to shoot a Nazi rally. That's really what it came down to. And he didn't see anything wrong with it. Right. And my question is, do Canadians really see that this Al-Quds thing is anti-Jew, anti-Semitic, anti-hate? Or do they see it as just a chance for people to protest the other side? Like this is them talking about their own issues as opposed to it being a Jew bash.
Well, I think Canadians, the government of Canada just recently adopted the definition of anti-Semitism by the International Holocaust Remembrance Association or agency, and to the credit of CEJA, I'll say, CEJA has been lobbying the government to adopt this, and now the next step is to go to various levels of government and news sources and say this is the definition that has been accepted. So since it's accepted, so when and in that definition, when you call for the destruction and elimination of Israel and other things, equating Zionism with Nazism and so on and so forth, that's anti-Semitism. You try to press hate crimes charges then. The government would do that, and maybe the police would enforce that, and the Attorney General would get involved. So there's a little bit of hope there to do that. There's some work with that, but I think your rank and file Canadian understands that and doesn't want this kind of hate. What goes on at Al-Quds Day? This is Iran coming into Canada, and the typical Canadian doesn't want that. Typical Canadian is not in favor of what people calling for the destruction of Israel. Number two, people glorifying a regime that hangs gays in public squares.
But they don't understand it. I mean, that's the reality. The bottom line is the Canadian community doesn't understand. Like, we're seeing right now, we just celebrated, well, we're literally finishing the month, Gay Pride Month.
Right.
And, we have organizations that clearly do not want Jews marching with the other gays. When you're seeing that Israel has such a huge gay community,
Yep.
that even Palestinian Arabs or Arabs from all over the world who are gay are coming to Israel to celebrate.
Yep.
And yet the organizations here in Canada and the United States are so anti-Semitic where they allow the other side. I would say fine, you don't want problems, like what is it, Queers Against Apartheid, which
Yep.
is one of the organizations. Yep. But then you have like them allowing the Islamic side, who they clearly know would hang each and every person that's there,
Yep.
drag them through the streets to participate. So if we're going to wait for the Canadian society to really pick up on this, we're going to be waiting forever.
Well,
because the bottom line is in front of their face. So,
and here's the bottom line: we have a state of Israel,
Mhm.
and the state of Israel was created for. One of the main reasons why it was created is to be a safe haven for Jews to get to when time runs out, wherever,
Mhm.
because there's no guarantee in countries in the diaspora. Jews loved it in Germany,
Mhm.
they loved it in Europe, and look what happened. And today in France, even, you can't go outside wearing a kippah.
right.
Uh,
Well, Germany right now
Germany
came out
just said
saying
that, yeah.
people should not be going
Yeah,
out,
like
right?
what?
So,
look
hide
at
where you
with
are.
that. So
Right.
so thank God we have Israel, and it's a strong country. It gets better all the time.
Mhm.
Strong army, and
Well, Israel defends its citizens in Israel. And Israel doesn't have such a long arm here in Canada or the United States. And what I mean by that is we kind of have to take care of ourselves,
Mhm.
the organizations, and many people, even within the Jewish community, I hear it on a regular basis because I go out and travel and talk, and I hear that people are blaming Israel for the rise of anti-Semitism. So before, rise of anti-Semitism, no Israel. So we said if there wasn't Israel, we wouldn't have the Holocaust. But today, people are saying, no, it's because of the Zionists. It's almost separated. So do you believe that there's, in some ways, two types of Jews that are representing our community? The type that is basically saying, I want to be a religious Jew or a practicing Jew without the involvement of Israel, nothing to do with it. I live in Canada. I'm a Canadian Jew. And the ones, right, I laugh at it too because I'm from Israel and I feel like they're disconnected. But then you have the other
But
ones
you're
who are
right.
fighting for and saying, well, Israel is our number one. I am a Jew, I'm a Canadian, but I live by the mantra of never again. Hence why I am Canadian and I will do everything possible towards Canada. But at the same time, I will always support Israel and I am their soldier on the ground here in Canada.
well, Rabbi Yehuda Levi in his classic work, The Kuzari,
Mhm.
so there's three things that are the most important to Jews. That is the be-it-all, end-all, end of story about everything. These are the pillars for us. The Torah, Jewish people, and the land of Israel. Three, and they're inseparable. They come together, and that's it. So any Jew who says, I want no part of Israel, he's forsaken what it really means to be Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
When Moses took the Jews out of Egypt, maybe the Maturi Karta, they want to flutter about the fame, what it means,
Right.
where they were headed. But it was, we're leaving Egypt, and we're going to get the Torah, and we're going to prepare ourselves, and we're going into Israel. And that's where we first came from. That's where our forefathers were. Abraham was there, and Isaac was there. They're all there. And we're going back. Thank you, Egypt, but we're going back. And that's it. And we had temples, and we had kings, and we had prophets there, and everything, and that's our heritage.
Mm-hmm.
And it's inseparable. And the reason for the Torah was to develop a Jewish society in Israel. It's the blueprint of how a Jew should live, and the most fulfillment for a Jew is in Israel. So any Jew that, and you got them on the far left, Jews, I got nothing to do with Israel, and they're not religious, but they don't want to come close. And they'll make excuses for the enemy. They'll join the BDS.
I feel like they just don't understand what their words really mean. Like they're looking for an excuse because they just don't want to be involved in anything. They're not looking to fight, and they're not understanding that like our entire existence is based on fighting. Right now, we're not physically fighting because we live in Canada. Things are great, but Israel plays a role there. What I want to do right now is we put out some questions on Facebook before the show began, and there's two questions that I wanted to read to you from our audience. So the first one is from Stephanie McVoy. I think you know this person. How can non-Jews help? So how can we combat the media lies? So I responded to her in my way, but I wanted you to give your response as to say there's many people out there who are recognizing that the Jewish people are, are in a point where they have to defend themselves, maybe not physically now, but in the near future. And as we know, it starts with words. So what would you say to the non-Jewish community and how they can help get involved without it being a religious piece?
Right. Come out to our rallies and come out to our events and help. We have people who are not Jewish that come out and help.
What does it mean help? Like what could they possibly do?
Well,
just
whatever.
Hold a sign,
you can
write in the papers. What could they possibly do?
Well, you know what? For instance, I'm going to give you a real good for instance. For instance, at All Foods Day. So, I mean, it's always on Shabbat. So I stay downtown for Shabbat at the hotel, and I think I'm set up downtown. And but I can't speak into microphones or anything. I'm restricted by various laws of Shabbat.
By the way, that's tactical that they do it on Shabbat on a regular basis to not have our side, right, represented. I mean, I've noticed most of the things that happen throughout the city happen to be either Friday night or Shabbat.
It could be because what goes on in I think in New York City and some other cities it happens on Friday, and in London, England, it happens on Sunday. So for whatever reason, they started it on Shabbat. But that could be the reason. But nonetheless, it does not excuse religious Jews for not taking this issue seriously. I don't think a lot of people are really that educated on what is anti-Semitism today and what are these threats. A lot of people they're so busy with so many other things in their lives that they've never even considered it. So, but it should be considered to come down. But when we have it, and it's on Shabbat. So, for instance, there's this one guy, great guy, not Jewish, and he's a big supporter of Israel. Goes around a lot of churches speaking. Mark Vanderman, and he would come. He used to live coastal London, Ontario, so he would come in. He just moved to the East Coast now. There's a little void there, so he would come out, and I would ask him. I'd say, Mark, I can't speak on you could, and you know what to say. So, for instance, if there's talented people who are not Jewish Christians or whatever, that's one thing where they could really help because they agree and they understand what the problem is.
But I want to talk about the general public, how clearly the lady who's talking is involved. She's somebody who I noticed that befriended her not long ago, and she writes a lot of active things on the internet. But what about your regular person, meaning somebody who is there to say, look, this is Canada, this shouldn't happen, I'm here, I'm not supporting either side, I'm here, I want peace, but this is ridiculous. I mean, this is pure anti-Semitism. We're noticing swastikas everywhere. We're noticing graves being stumbled on. We're seeing it's happening slowly, but if we're looking at Europe just across the pond, we can see really what it could look like. So shouldn't we be going out and really catering to the Canadian public and saying, we need your support because we don't want the hate?
Yeah, well, and the hate is directed at them too. I mean, it's the same haters that hate every anti-Semite out there. Let's say people who support radical Iran. They hate us. They hate Israel, and they hate the West. They burn Israeli flags, they burn American flags.
So when we say the West, you mean everything we stand for as Western society?
Everything that Western society stands
And I think that is something very important, crucial for us to really highlight, is because when people say they hate the West, okay, yeah, and people seem to think, oh, it's, well, America, they come, they conquer, they bomb, they take properties. They're not understanding that it's more about the ideology as opposed to just the actions themselves. They don't like what we stand for. And I think the difference is is that when we as Jewish people from Israel especially, we come here and we're like, we're going to be Canadian. We're still going to be doing what we're doing at home. I want to celebrate. It's not going to stop me, but I am a part of the country and I will live by the values of the country. We'll bring people from other places. We don't hold them to the same standards. It's almost like they come here and they can become whatever they want to be. And the reason I bring this up is ISIS was actually created based on people who were living in England and France and Germany and Belgium and Canada and the States who were radicals and then went and made ISIS what it was. I don't know if it still exists or not. But you understand what I'm saying? There needs to be more about educating people about, hey, when you're in Canada, there are certain standards you have to follow. And I'm noticing lately that it's only one-sided. I'm seeing that whenever like a Jewish person wants to stand up, right away they put them in this box. And yet when the Muslims continue to do whatever they're doing, it's a little slap on the wrist.
Okay. When you say Muslims,
well, no, I'm talking about radicals. I'm talking clearly for the audience that's watching. I'm talking about the radicals.
Right.
The problem is if I'll share a quick story. I had a friend who is not a radical by any means, just someone who's confused, and I'll share the story. He is of a Muslim background, and I know this guy for a very, very long time. And he was dating a Jewish girl, and at the time she was going to go on birthright, and he wanted to go to Israel too, on birthright. And sorry, that's not, you can't go on this trip. So he started talking to his friends, and they were a little bit more radical, and they said, oh, like, you're a Muslim, they're never going to love you, like, they won't appreciate you, you want to go to Israel, but they don't care for you. And they started saying all these negative things about it. Yeah. And he knew that I was an advocate, and one day I see him at the mall, he approached me, or I approached him to say hello, and he said he doesn't want to talk to me anymore. And I asked him, like, why do you not want to talk to me? Like, what did I do as a person to person? I know you for so many years. And he said, well, because you support this type of country that won't allow me to come in as a Muslim to the state of Israel. And at that time, I was leading birthright trips. So I said to him, I'm extending my trip. Why don't you come with me, like, afterwards? Meaning, I'll go there with the trip, I'll stay extra, and I'll provide 3 days to spend time with you around Israel. I'm letting you know right now, they may ask you extra questions at the border, because clearly, there are certain people who are a threat. But all in all, I'll even take you to places that I can't go into within Israel. And he was like, really? And I said, yeah, trust me. But I said to him, but I'd like to go with you to Saudi Arabia, on a nice trip. Can you take me there? And he goes, no, you're a Jew. And he played it off like as if this was okay for a second. He didn't want to befriend me because my people didn't accept him. Yeah. But now when I'm telling him his people are not accepting me, it was like, well, you're Jewish. Yeah. And there was this like double standard that... Yeah. And I felt if that story really went out there and people heard this, they would realize that there is this double standard that we're not actually talking about.
It never clicked in? Yeah.
No. It clicked in, but it was kind of like, well, what do you want me to do? But when he spoke to me about Israel, I was like, I could have said to him, well, what do you want me to do? Like, you know what I mean? But the reality, I know that, like, as we have 20% of a Muslim community living in Israel. And I did a film on, I called Disengaged from Reality, where I followed 21 different Arabs all over Israel, talked to them about what life was like in Israel. So clearly highlighting our society, because they are a part of our society. They make up 20%. But people don't have this information here. All they're seeing is when we're answering back, all they're seeing is when we're defending ourselves. And that's what it seems to be, that we're always on the defense as opposed to being on the offense and trying to really expose these particular people at the mosques, trying to expose these imams who are spreading those hate speeches. And when we're coming out, it's in some ways almost too late, because now we're at a fight as opposed to trying to stop it beforehand. This is just...
listen, I don't disagree with you on that.
Another question that's been brought up by Lisa Cohen, an avid listener and watcher. Mayor already knows this is an ongoing need that you want me to ask about. What is the JDL doing to help youth advocates who are combating anti-Semitism at school and on campus? Is there any move towards the youth-led JDL group? So people want to know whether we should get younger people involved, or is it something that just... Because when you're seeing the JDL, you're seeing mostly seniors.
Right. No, not so much, but older guys that are established. Okay. Well, listen, we had a branch a number of years ago on some of the campuses, one York University, And for whatever reason, the Jewish student groups they worked against us.
Mm-hmm.
And currently, I think I'm still banned from York University. I didn't see any Jewish groups on campus advocate on my behalf to go there.
Why is that? I mean, university is a place for thinkers, a place for people who are supposed to be more.
Well, look, when Israel Apartheid Group started on
Mm-hmm.
campus, it's big at York University.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lot of campaigns against it. Right? And BDS groups, they saw the JDL, they saw this was action, this was in your face. And we're bringing out people, and we're bringing out a different element. So, I mean, after Jews who were involved with JDL on campus graduated, and others, then there had groups, I don't want to mention the names of the groups or the individuals that represented those groups, but they're very vocal and trying to persuade. We even had, when I went out to Calgary to speak, and it was not on campus where I spoke. They rented a hall somewhere downtown Calgary, and it was full. But Jewish students were told by one of the main Jewish student organizations there, if you attend the JDL meeting, you're going to be blacklisted from participating in any Jewish student events on campus. This going on. So, for instance, there's a young leader, Lauren Isaacs, Favored Canada. And I met with her, and I'm trying to, encourage her and talking to people to support her. So, if they don't want to come through to JDL, they can come through to Favored Canada and get similar things done in terms of advocacy and standing up to the anti-Semitism or these radical Islamic organizations that support terrorist groups and our demise. So, that's good. So we'll work another way. So,
What do you believe that the campuses are doing wrong? There are many organizations, especially since the second Intifada in 2000. There has been so many people organizations that work together to try and make it easier for Jewish students on campus.
they're not.
What do you see
They
they're
take
not
it-
doing right?
Well, I think students, they can be molded to do good stuff if they got the right leadership. They don't have the right leadership. We got leaders that are looking for this as a job, as a career move, some kind of a title leading to something else, and it's wrong. They don't have the fire to confront the enemy on campus, and therefore you see so much passivity on campus. JDL, we went on campus. We went to University of Toronto, York, Ryerson. We confronted these events, Israel Apartheid Week, and other events that we're supporting. Definitely support of the Intifada and violence against Jews and supporters of Israel. So that has to be done from the leader. The leadership has to set the tone. They're not on campus.
Do you believe
it as a career move?
Do you believe that it's like back in the day it was about Zionism, and we were so close to the Holocaust that we kind of felt it, and today's generation isn't connecting to it the same way? You feel that has something to do with it? Because I know that being an Israeli, I'm very passionate about it, and it's not the type of passion that a Canadian Jew could possibly have because they haven't lived there.
There's some of that, but also what.
Well, where's the fire coming from? I mean, they're not.
Well, they don't
even see it as a problem. They're seeing, okay, fine.
They don't have a fire in their belly for the thing. You have groups such as J-Space, which is similar to J Street in the United States, pouring cold water on. Essentially, what it comes down to is a lack of real good Jewish identity, and we have a lot of assimilation going on. So you have a mixed message from Jews that might climb up to a leadership position. That certainly is true with J Street in the United States, that they've set up throughout the United States Hillel U or a different version of Hillel that adopts certain positions of VES.
Mm.
So you got these problems, and you have it all stems down to Jewish identity. If you have a weak leader that doesn't really have the fundamentals and the fire, what it takes for Jewish identity and passion, then just having bagels and Lux for breakfast one day is not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
The students are just going to go and attend their classes and ignore what's going on and just leave and go home. But if you need a leadership, that will direct them.
We have many people joining in throughout. Is there any questions, something that came out from the audience? Any particular questions that we can question right now? Put it out. Be able to scroll.
Lisa said.
You can just be a little bit louder so they can hear you.
Hold on a second.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa said some would say that the JDL represents the right of the Jewish community. What do you say to that?
So some people say you represent the right within the Jewish community? Okay, so representing of the right. Well, there's many right organizations. What does it remain right, left? But is that how you see yourself, as a right-wing organization?
No, I don't. No, I don't. You know what? I guess on the left would be Bernie Farber in the Jewish community. He used to be the CEO of the Canadian Jewish Congress. I used to speak to him when he was in that capacity, almost on a daily basis. And it seems like his positions have certainly changed today since he's not there. He's active with J-Space, and I don't think much about J-Space, but
it's not about right. Yeah, it's not about right.
But having said that,
I
wouldn't say that it's. And he still, I have disagreements with him, but even Bernie, he still does certain things that I gotta give him credit for.
Mm-hmm.
He does some good stuff still. He also does some things that I criticize him about, and he criticizes me. There's no question about it. It's a free game.
Right.
And he's got thick skin, and I do too. But I don't consider myself really on. Some people would say I'm on the right.
Mm-hmm.
The JDL, we're not the Koch party. We're not representing the position of how Rabbi Kahana was in Israel, because we're not in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
The JDL deals with threats to the Jewish community in the diaspora, and that's the focus.
Mm-hmm.
And our support for Israel, although we might support certain things or some of us would, and some of us maybe not in the JDL would support the position of Rabbi Kahana, how it was in Israel. But that's a non-issue, really.
Mm-hmm.
Our support for Israel is ironclad in the JDL. We won't take anyone in who's anti-Israel into the group.
Mm-hmm.
But just the fundamentals of Zionism. So I think that's, we respect Israeli democracy of who is going to be elected in Israel. We're not involved in...
So you're apolitical?
Pretty much we're apolitical. I know Moshe Feiglin, I know certain people, but and personally I would be in favor of certain things that he stands for, certain things that Bennett stands for, certain things that other people stand for, but that's a personal thing. But but that's not a position of JDL. The position of JDL, we have to support Israel. We live outside of Israel. We've got to do everything to support Israel. So it's not a right or left issue. The early days of JDL in Canada, when I ran it in the 80s, I even worked with we had some meetings with the Shomer Tzayer to try and coordinate patrols.
Very leftist.
Try and coordinate some patrols in the Jewish community, and we just made it. Okay, so in Israel we got some disagreements, but we live here. Let's just talk about anti-Semitism and threats against the community.
Right.
Let's work together, and there was a little bit of cooperation there.
Is there anything else? Any other questions that we're on today?
Not really.
Not really. Okay. The way I'm going to do this today, I'm going to have 5 words.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm going to say a word, and first thing comes to your mind, and we'll just kind of try and discuss it.
Okay.
So, Palestine.
There is no Palestine.
Okay. So, talk to me a little bit about when you hear that word. What does it really tell you?
Well, it tells me the negation of Jewish history. The word Palestine came into being after the Romans destroyed the Second Temple and defeated the Bar Kokhba revolt in 139 1935. And Jews were sent into exile. There still were some Jews living in Israel anyways at the time, but for the most part, Jews went into exile. And to try and humiliate the Jews, our arch enemy that lived pretty much on the coast around Gaza, Philistines, they're like the invaders who weren't the Arabs. And they were extinct already, but the Romans to try and rub it into the Jews that we defeated you, and we're going to change the name legally from Judea to Palestina after the Philistines. That's the roots of it. There was no Palestine people there, or capital of Palestine or anything. So when it's thrown out enough, it's actually thrown out to try and erase Jewish history.
I wanted to go into it, but we will leave it at that. The word peace, what does it mean to you?
It means, I hope so. I certainly hope so.
But when you think about the word peace, because for some people, when they say peace, it's a word, oh, I want peace. Well, what does it entail? Elaborate on the word peace for you.
Well, I paid attention to the economic summit in Bahrain, and I watched, and I was impressed with the presentation by Jared Kushner from what I saw. I didn't see the whole thing. But he got a round of applause from the Arabs who represented the Gulf Coast Arab countries. They applauded him, and he went on about the lack of governance from the PA and the leadership of those who call themselves Palestinians, that there's no governance or anything, and if there's going to be any kind of an economic plan to prop them up, make a better kind of life and conditions and all that, all based on governance. And they applauded Jared Kushner. They recognize what's going on. So I'm hopeful. Who knows what's going to happen with that? But I'm hopeful that maybe there's some kind of division that will be created in the Arab community that will be, instead of this desire, let's destroy Israel, that you'll have enough that will say, let's work with Israel. Israel is on the cutting edge of technology and so on and so forth, and they're here to stay.
Trudeau.
I've got mixed feelings about the Prime Minister of Canada. A lot of people would probably have a knee-jerk reaction thinking that, if you're going to ask Mayor a question about Trudeau, he's just automatically going to say bad, horrible, terrible, left, this, that, and the other. Before he was Prime Minister, I protested a fundraiser that he had at the home of the late Barry Sherman. And the reason we protested, I don't want to tell Jews who to vote for, because we've had enough Jews who have voted for the Liberal Party years ago, and I was impressed with Pierre Trudeau when he was Prime Minister, and I wasn't an expert on politics back then, but he had a certain flair about him, and a lot of people were impressed. And I liked what he said about when there was a threat of terrorism in Canada, and he said, "Just watch what he's going to do about it." He meant business, and so the reason we had the picket fundraiser was not necessarily against Justin Trudeau, because I know that he supports Israel. I knew that before that, but he threw his weight and support of the Liberal Party did behind the Iran nuclear deal. And the Prime Minister of Israel and the Israeli society was pretty united, saying that this is a catastrophe, this deal for Israel, and it's just going to embolden Iran to very soon break out and enrich uranium, and they'll have many nuclear bombs. So it's a very big threat. So who do I trust more, Trudeau or the Prime Minister of Israel on that issue? So we have to pick it. But with that said, I certainly recognize that Prime Minister Trudeau has spoken out against the BDS. I certainly recognize that he's had very good meetings with Benjamin Netanyahu, and he definitely does support Israel. He's got some good people like Michael Levitt. He definitely is very good. I felt a certain affinity to Stephen Harper because he was so outspoken for Israel. But that it should be nobody but Harper. So that might be narrow thinking. Or
Well, it's a one issue. It's also
Yeah.
based on one issue,
Right,
which is Israel.
right, exactly.
Close to home for you. The media.
The media seems to be, I would say it's like a left-wing bias, and many in the media seem to be you're right, anti-Israel. So
Why do you think that is? Because in some ways, in my mind, we are the good. We show it. Like you go to Israel and you feel it. There's a reason why we're bringing strangers to come to Israel on a regular basis to show them what life is like. And I don't see any tours in Gaza
Yeah.
that are not just about victimization.
Well, we've had some people who are with the CBC or others that they're either on the left, or you have some Muslim reporters. I don't even like saying it like that, but there's an attitude in the Muslim community that's anti-Israel, and so it's almost like natural, almost like this guy that when he said will you bring me to Saudi Arabia? It's like, well, they won't abuse you.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't even matter to him. It's just
right.
like pass the coffee, that kind of thing. So I mean, if this is how it's being spun in the Islamic community, that they're being raised that no, there should be an Islamic Palestine and shouldn't be a Jewish state there, and so on and so forth. And there's so much for that, and we see it. I monitor a lot of the Islamic organizations, and there's just anti-Israel events that we have on the highest level of these organizations. So it just seems natural that if they're honoring someone who works for the CBC, that's the Islamic Faith and so on and so forth, that their reportage of Israel is not going to be in sync with what I think it should be.
Right. I went on a flight once. I went to Israel to shoot a film, and Neil MacDonald was on the airplane. And I approached him and I said, "Hi, Neil MacDonald. I'm a journalist, and I wanted to know if once we arrive to Israel, would it be possible for me to possibly interview you about, what you're doing in Israel?" And because he came with his family, and he looked at me and he goes, "Are you Israeli?" And I said to him, "Well, I was born in Israel, but like I'm Canadian. I've been living here. Can you please go back to your seat?" And I said to him, "Mr. McDonald, I was like, do you want me to call somebody and get you off the plane? Please go back to your seat." So just around that time, I was meeting with Microtainment, which is like another documentary company here. And the guy that used to work for Microtainment used to work for the CBC. And I told him that story. And he said, "What do you expect? When he comes to Israel, and he thinks, when he comes to Israel and he says, I'm this journalist, and the Israelis don't care about him. They don't give him who cares? So what? Big deal. But when he comes to the Palestinian territories, hi, Mr. McDonald, please come in, and they feed him and they take care of him. He's like, how would you feel? Like if you're coming to Israel where they don't care, and there you're treated like a king, of course you're going to become biased. Clearly this person has taken on a different role. I can call him an anti-Semite. I don't care. But that is sort of the view, and why the media in some ways caters more to the other community is because they're playing a game. Whereas I feel like Israelis are more like, look, this is life. This is what you got. And there's that, again, that double standard works in media because they're always looking for the victim. They're always looking for the story as opposed to what's there in front of you. They're looking to make something out of something. I learned a lot from you today. And it's funny because your mannerism is very calm and you're answering things that, in my opinion, I didn't expect you to say it the way you said it, for example, Trudeau, or to talk about. I want to finish off with the left. And the reason I want to finish off with the left is because today we're literally are putting ourselves in positions where we're saying there's a left and there's a right. And you said, when I asked you the question, or Lisa asked the question, if you sit on the right, do you see a difference? Do you see that it's broken down into left and right, or is it just the, how do you say this, the uneducated, or the ones who live in a bubble, who are not seeing the big picture? Why do you think that the left is so strong today that many Jewish people are joining the march?
Yeah. Well, I think the left has been working for a long time to have people in positions of.
When we mean left, by the way, we mean extremists. We're not talking about someone who believes in peace and like this. We're talking about purely the extremist left, who whatever you'll say, they'll have a comeback. And you're not looking at it from any perspective. You're looking for a victim. You're looking for someone who's done wrong, as opposed to looking at the big picture. So just want to put it out there so the audience understands. We're not trying to attack the right or the left, but more of the radical left ideas that we're seeing are holding hands. The BDS is one of those leftist ideas.
Yeah, and they work hard to get positions of decision-making positions, professor here, professor there, where they could actually shape policy. He's on the university campus, and then they try to bring things to a vote that they're going to exclude Israel or anything related to Israel or such. On the right, I think they have strong. I think they lack strong leadership. They seem to be fragmented a fair bit on the right, and there's a lot of problems on the right. Like Stephen Harper was a strong leader and seemed to be able to unite a lot of groups on the right. There seemed to be some kind of peace with peace. All these different types of groups on the right. Today, I don't see that. I don't see Andrew Scheer as being some kind of a polarizing figure that could unite the right. I think maybe Trudeau's going to get reelected.
Really?
Unless the economy is a complete disaster. But
we're seeing a video right now of him meeting with leaders, and they're not taking him seriously. Standing on the outskirts, nobody's shaking his hands. Is that good for our country? I mean,
Warren Kinsella, that's a big strategist for the Liberals. He's ready to go bashing Justin Trudeau. But really, I think unless the economy tanks, I don't see like a polarizing figure from the conservative side. And Andrew Scheer. I'd like to see my preferences conservatives get in, but it's very possible that Justin Trudeau's going to. He's young, and again, he's not anti-Israel. He definitely isn't. He speaks out against the BDS, and very clear about that. And he's got good relations with Prime Minister Netanyahu. And Michael Levitt, he's doing great work here against anti-Semitism and doing good stuff. So he's not radical left. So
we seem to put him in that category because
it's easy on social media to put him in that.
We're getting videos, and we're seeing him like acting foolish. Like we don't see him being very, I'm going to say presidential or prime minister-like.
Yeah, but
he doesn't have it.
I know, and I could bash him much. I mean, we only protested because the issue was the Iranian nuclear. Yeah, we protested another time too when he handed over a check to Omar Khadr. But when the conservatives were in power, they also gave they also had settlements similar to that.
Well, Israel gives money to certain terrorists.
Yeah.
So
I don't want to. I'm not into giving cheap shots up there, but we'll see what happens. I don't see strong leadership from the conservatives. And I would say I remember reading in a book by Anthony Robbins, one of these
self-help
inspirational books and all that. And he says, you can go to a party and the place is full and everybody's having a great time, and it's like free. So everybody's having a fabulous time at this party, and it's going on for quite a few hours. And then all of a sudden, there's like a 20-second gap somewhere in the corner where nobody even pays attention. There's some fight in the corner. Just a few guys or something. Somebody takes a picture, says, "That's the party." So when they take this shot of Justin Trudeau, okay,
well, he goes to India, he dances like crazy. I mean,
know,
there's a lot of things.
It
seems like he's still somewhat of a drama teacher. But that's maybe my perspective, my own biases with regards to this person. But right now it's Canada Day tomorrow, big celebration. It's wonderful for all. I'm a proud Canadian. I'm sure you're a proud Canadian. And the bottom line is, we are here to really protect Canadians and at the same time protect Jewish Canadians who feel like there's a threat. And we can't help everyone, but we can do our part. So if you were to wish something to the Canadian people, to the Canadian Jewish population, what are the final words that you can maybe throw out there?
Well, for Canada Day, have a great time.
Okay.
Have a barbecue.
No, but you know what I mean. Like I'm saying,
But,
like because we're celebrating freedom, right?
Yeah,
We're celebrating.
don't take it lightly. That's right. We're celebrating freedom, and it has to have a lot of meaning. So when we talk about groups that are threats in Canada and getting stronger all the time, that we need your help to marginalize them and expose them and confront them, so that they're deflated, and that's what we want. We want to deflate them. It's similar, like we did, in Calgary and other places. When their egos, they're like ballooning out there. We want to take that tin, stick it in there, and deflate the entire thing. And that's what we got people going from the BDS trying to intimidate the Jewish community, going to parks, going up to seniors and telling Jewish seniors Israel should be destroyed, and so on and so forth. We want
Stickers.
All that, going to seeing goods and all that. We want to take the confidence away from them. And we need you to get involved, and please get involved and let's do it.
This has been actually remarkable. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much to our sponsor, ENS Plumbing. For all your plumbing needs, please contact ENS Plumbing. The information is right there. This was wonderful. I really learned a lot, and I wish for all of us to have peaceful Canada Day, and for us to really unite as a community. I've had enough of seeing us really separate right, left, center. At the end of the day, we're a people of peace. We're people who care and are not just about ourselves, but always helping others, technology, environment, whatever it may be. And hopefully more people realize that. And I think once the world really will understand what is our position in this world, they may at some point protect us. So thank you one more time. Really appreciate it. On behalf of Mayor Weinstein, thank you very much for being here. And myself, Ron Furman, looking forward to seeing you next week. Happy Canada Day to everybody. And thank you very much for tuning in. This was great. This was wonderful.
Yeah.